There are many ways to own a property, and tenancy in common is one of them. While it is an option, there are a few reasons why this kind of arrangement might not be the best way to secure real estate. Welcome back, Loopers. My name is Sydney, and I'm a content creator here at DoorLoop. In this video, we're going to define tenancy and common to give you a good understanding of what it is and help you understand the associated risks so you can better equip yourself to decide whether it's the right option for you. So let's start with what is tenancy and common. There are many ways to own a residential or commercial property, and tenancy and common is one of them. Tenancy and entirety and joint tenancy are two other types of real property ownership. Tenants in common agree to each hold an ownership percentage of the entire property, either an equal or different percentage, and if one of the joint tenants passes away, their heir will have the right to claim ownership of the property for the portion that their predecessor held rather than the joint tenant. Furthermore, different times may be used to acquire an ownership interest in tenants in common. Consequently, tenants may be eligible to buy an interest after a number of years and at various times. Additionally, individual conveyances may be used to transfer ownership interest to each tenant in common. So let's talk about how it works. Owners who are also tenants in common have rights and equal or unequal undivided interest in every part of the property acquired with the same deed. However, each of the tenants may own a different proportion of financial interest in the building or piece of land. Moreover, any renter may separately sell or borrow against their respective ownership interest. With regard to property tax and other property payments, all tenants in common will receive one bill. A well-drafted tenancy in common agreement will specify the liability of each tenant with regard to property taxes. So why can tenancy in common be beneficial? A structure or piece of land may be owned jointly by two or more parties under this kind of legal agreement. The main characteristic of a tenancy in common is that each business partner retains the option to leave their respective shares of the property to their descendants while also being able to sell their respective portions of the property. Although there are sure benefits, the joint tenancy of this kind also represents a number of risks. So let's explore some of these risks. It's important to understand the risk involved before entering into this kind of co-ownership agreement. So let's look at some of those problems or disadvantages associated with tenancy in common. First is joint and several liability. Each tenant in common is an asset of each co-owner and is liable for the debts of all other owners. We believe that taking this kind of risk would be unreasonable for an investment. You must also worry about the other co-owners' creditors in addition to your own. The biggest issue with tenants in common is that they have complete freedom over how they use their fractional ownership interest in the property. One of the joint owners may borrow money against their share of the property. The interest held by one owner is also subject to the creditors of that owner. There's also no direct right of survivorship. If there is no will in place explicitly stating the transfer of ownership to the heir, family members cannot claim the right to the portion the deceased tenant in common owned. Tenants in common are free to resell their portion. Existing tenants in common might learn that they now share ownership of the property with a brand new co-owner who might not fully understand the motivation for the investment and how it works. The new tenant could force the present co-owners of the property to sell it by filing a partition action lawsuit. So how can you mitigate these risks? If you prefer this way of owning property, the good news is that there are many ways to prevent the problems. First is do your research about every co-owner before entering an agreement. Joint tenancy can pose many risks as we've talked about, so it's important that you learn as much as you can about the people that you're entering into this agreement with. If you know that a joint tenant has a gambling problem or poor credit score, for example, you should definitely think twice about the joint tenancy agreement. Our second tip is to use a well-drafted agreement. The tenants can avoid numerous drawbacks in common by signing a well-drafted written agreement. This is why it's crucial to have a tenants in common agreement created by a real estate attorney. A clause in the agreement may grant the co-owners the legal right to refuse in the event that one of them decides to sell. The authority of the co-owners to approve or reject prospective buyers may also be covered under this agreement to protect existing tenants. Our third tip is to make sure you have a will in place. Another way to ensure that your heir receives ownership of your portion of joint tenancy is to ensure that you have a well-written will in place that cannot be easily disputed. We recommend getting sound legal advice to ensure that you're doing the best you can to secure your assets in the event of your death. And lastly, of course, just get sound legal advice in general. It's important to seek reliable legal counsel from an experienced lawyer that deals with real estate transactions. He or she can help you identify any potential problems and offer solutions that might help mitigate the risks. Although tenancy in common might seem like a favorable option for owning real estate, there are several disadvantages that you need to be aware of. Joint liability, the lack of right of ownership, and more could make this kind of agreement risky. Fortunately, as we talked about, there are steps that can be taken to prevent or mitigate the risks involved. We recommend seeking legal counsel before deciding whether tenancy in common is the right way to go for you. If you need help managing your property, you can turn to to DoorLoop. With innovative features to help your accounting, rent collections, and agreement creation, you can make the most of your tenancy in common. If you want to learn more, I recommend reading the laws in play in your state and download the free forms you need for your rental business with the link down in the description. You can also click a link down in the description to get a free demo with DoorLoop today. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Plus, you can check out this playlist for more property management tips. And if you're looking for a place to connect with other property managers or landlords, join our exclusive Facebook group. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!